And with me is Angela Jenkins, Senior Vice President of the American National Bank of Texas in the area of operational risk management, records privacy, third party risk, and wearing many more hats. Thank you for being with me today, Angela.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, I do wear many hats and have been down many journeys, especially with the AI part coming on right now. Definitely have a lot that I would love to share with everyone and have that start that conversation.
Great. So let us start then with culture, because we do know that culture will eat strategy for breakfast, right? So, the
Absolutely.
most important component, what should we be considering in the financial institutions and regardless of size as it pertains to incorporation of large language models, ChatGPT, etc.?
I think the first part is just that educational component, whether you're talking to a board member, a senior manager, an executive manager, a middle manager, whatever that is, it's that making sure that we know what we're talking about, especially in a very evolving and changing world and topic going on right now, because it is confusing. And if you don't know where you're at, what spectrum of what we're talking about here, you're not really going to understand the decisions that you may be making. And by that, you want your senior and your executive management to be able to set that tone at the top, because ultimately that's your biggest risk driver right there, is setting the tone for what the behavior and the expectations are and to lead by example. That's definitely the biggest cultural risk, and how you can get people to better embrace the change. And it's okay to admit that we're all learning along the way, and nobody here is a genius in AI by any means of the imagination. And
So,
then, that just goes straight into, once they set the tone at the top and they embrace it, you got to socialize that strategy and socialize that thought of, where is it okay for us to set these boundaries? Where is it okay to explore ideas where we could implement and see something happen? Is it okay to use generative AI tools to make training documentation, for example, or to use it for something in a back office? I love to be able to use it for expense reports, because I hate making my expense reports, to be honest. So any help there would be wonderful. Others in the IT realm, they want to use it to like fix their code or make it run more efficiently, or whatever that they may have. None of those are really bad areas if you think about it, or highly risky areas. But when you get into areas like, should it be customer facing? Should we put this technology in front of our customers or in a product or service that we have? Then it's a different conversation, right? And then you open your world into a different realm. So definitely setting that tone at the top with an understanding, and then putting the boundaries out in place so that people do understand, that work with you. Whether it's a vendor or it's your employee, it should be shared regardless of the relationship.
so, I'm a board member in
Mhm.
theory, and I get it. I have to be educated, but education comes in many flavors.
Yeah.
There's got to be a bridge that helps me apply very quickly what I have learned and apply it in the measure that is appropriate to the risk appetite of the
Yes.
financial institution.
Yeah.
Walk us through that, please.
So I think one of the easiest things that you can do, we can all go in and understand a definition, right? But then you start to the application. And let's start thinking about that, maybe have some breakout sessions and some exercises on thought where you actually have to come back and make a decision, and then talk about, why did you choose it that way? Do you understand some of the ramifications if we went down that way? So it's definitely a way to do that. The other side of the coin, outside of like a tabletop exercise or discussion, is, there are ways that you can implement, like in a sandbox or a test environment or whatever the case may be. You can implement some of these generative AI tools so that you get to play or demonstrate some capabilities like a chat bot or something along those lines, but there's no harm, no foul. There's no production environment, right? The second half of that is that you can not only get to understand how we could use it and get benefits, you're also building up your skill set, right? You're teaching your employees how to better use it and apply it to their work. Now, in a safe environment that doesn't involve going and using your phone or whatever device that you're using to do that, because that happens too. And, that's That's people risk. um, so it's definitely there, yeah, there too. But I think definitely bringing in that test environment and then reporting it back to the board and seeing what the application is, and hey, this spurred other ideas where we could consider the technology in these areas. Definitely having that open communication, it gets a wider array of what's happening, and it's more than just a definition or something on a piece of paper.
Now, Angela, help us with the fact that we have had in most organizations an inventory of AI for quite some time.
Yes,
Yes.
we have
How do we explain
differentiate.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, so there's obviously a technology spectrum. So it's, maybe something that's been around for a long time. There are AI capabilities like in fraud detection and some other capabilities that people already have. And they're lower level as far as technology, they're lower level risk. And they've been around for a very long time. I know my technology team likes to tell me that AI has been around for 50 years. And I say, but generative AI might have been developed like 2 minutes ago. There is a spectrum that we have to deal with. And I think that when you consider that AI at its base is still a model, we should probably know what modeling techniques we have, where they are, and what they're being used for. That does not equate to high risk by any automatic means. You need to look at the technology and the risk associated with it and what it's doing, right? Some of these things have been proven out for a long time, and they're a lot less risk than some of the things that maybe we don't fully understand, and that kind of lean more towards the more generative AI piece of it. So definitely focusing on your inventory, and then figuring out, what that looks like when you try to bring on something new, or the hardest part when a vendor or an application that you already use turns on something that you're not aware of. How do you make sure that you know what you're doing, that you know that you have it and where it is, and that it's okay? It's still within your boundaries. It's still within your risk appetite. It's still where we expect it to be.
And this is where sandbox environments are so useful, right?
It is. It's definitely, you can leverage the sandbox environment for a lot of this, and definitely use that to your advantage. I mean, especially, if you have, a way that your company can figure out how to maintain the tool versus a vendor. Or, there's so many different facets of the learning that can come into play here, whether you're a user, you're a developer, you're just testing out how it might work and you want to be more knowledgeable. Any and all above can be applied in that area. And people are willing to go. They're interested. It's something interesting to them, and you're providing them a safe way to do it, or a less risky way to do it, them telling them to go to whatever they find on, Grammarly, ChatGPT, whatever the next best website is with the product that they can play with. So you're still going to have that. Don't get me wrong. We can't eliminate that, but this will definitely provide them a safe way to get more familiar, figure out the benefits. What are all these people talking about?
And almost every organization has some form of center of excellence going on, whether it is in data or business processes or project management or whatever it is. How do you see, from an operational efficiency lens, how um, you can juxtapose or fuse the efforts of AI with a center of excellence?
I think the center of excellence works really well for us anyway, under operational risk, or even if you had something more standalone of a model risk capacity, you could do it under there as well. But it gives you a great method to come and bring different viewpoints together. Risk is obviously going to be in there: cybersecurity, IT governance, data governance, privacy. I'm probably leaving off a few here and there that might come in and play depending on what your topic is. But it's really a way for everyone to sit down, bring their viewpoints. Let's work through this. It's even more beneficial at the beginning, when we're trying to figure out all these really tough questions of how to apply and right size this. This is the great forum to do it. Now, we're not saying that you're going to make and record decisions here. It's really a forum to build a strategy, to figure out how to do the inner workings, how to work with each other, who should do what, who has what capacity and capability, for us to right size that. So that's really where those decisions, and it's a safe learning environment. The rest of it will, sorry, the rest of it will come as it goes. My lights don't like me. That doesn't mean I'm in the dark, just my office. But the rest of it comes. It's really how practicality, application, issues, usage, really working together as a team. When it comes time to make an official decision, that goes somewhere else, right? To a governance
Yeah.
committee
Yeah.
or whatever the authority is that at your bank or
So
financial
speaking of
institution.
governance, Angela, let's go to the less fun part of this, which is the reporting structure, the responsibilities. How does that get reconciled in a very new space as far as operations go?
I would say it's really trying to find that balance between IT governance and what the IT role is, and then still fitting in the model risk and the overall risk governance. I think that many institutions are taking the approach that they're going to apply generative AI or more risky AI technology with a risk-based approach, so it goes through a risk governance committee. But you still have to take into account there is a strategic component here, whether you're introducing a new product that has an generative AI capability, or something along those lines. Maybe there's a different strategic component that goes somewhere else. You don't want your strategic committee or deciding factor to be looking at your model validation reports, for example. You want to figure that out along the way. I think it's one of those where you really have to decide on what that structure is, and then what does that structure mean? Does that mean that you're focused on a risk-based approach, or are you saying it's a product-based view? So really understanding what your core is and how you're applying it probably decides most of the time what committee it goes to. But I would say for a default, it's been the risk committees is what I've seen being applied.
And not every organization has risk individuals focused in that
Mhm.
area and capable of saying, I'm a little uncomfortable here, but I'll take it on to the extent that I can. I mean, that's a little sticky right now for
Yeah,
folks. So they can land on IT for too long
yeah.
and maybe not have operational considerations as needed. Um, and it also affects the onboarding process of a third party. Um,
Yes, third party risk is starting to have, not that it doesn't have enough attention as it is already, just being third party risk, but yes, they get to be the gatekeepers in a sort of way, because that's what the onboarding is, or the relationship changes and now they have AI, and maybe that changes data sharing rights or access to systems or something else that raises a different risk that it didn't happen before. So yes, third party risk, while they're not going to be the assessors necessarily, they don't own AI risk. They are seen as a gatekeeper to hook into the right people, whether it's IT governance, whether it's InfoSec or cybersecurity, whether it's model risk. We're all trying to align together, and how do we notify? And more importantly, from a third party risk perspective, you want to get the contract language the way you want to around like things like transparency, around being able to be able to prove your concepts, what testing you should be doing, what validation you should be doing, all of those kinds of concepts. How long you're going to keep your data? Are they going to use it for training? All of those come in to apply, and they all definitely have some contract terms. So they're definitely in a space where they don't necessarily own the risk, but they are communicating the risk, and they are kind of signaling that we need to add that to an inventory in a lot of different ways.
if you're in first, second, or third line of defense as it pertains to risk, and maybe you are in charge of some measure of the contracting and procurement, is it enough to rely on the NIST AI playbook controls or the blueprint or the executive order? Have you found that to be enough, or are there other sources that you have to consult with to complete that?
I think that you take the basic concepts of what the NIST, I've used the NIST AI framework, but I've also relied heavily on the model risk management principles and concepts that you do. All of them play a role, obviously, in the different capacity in what you're doing. Some people are going to outsource more. My bank is going to be more of an outsource versus a developer. So completely different perspectives on that. I think a lot of smaller institutions like myself are going to be less on the development side. So really relying on an outside source to be able to prove, to be transparent, to have something that is functionable that you're trusting to use, right, is a different type of perspective. So you are trying to use the NIST framework, but you're also trying to figure out I mean, nothing is boilerplate, right? Like nothing, you can't just unplug it and plug it in over here and it works just fine. You got to tailor it, and you got to tailor it to where your talents are. So when I think about generative AI and a model capability, what does testing look like? Is that something the first line user can do? Or is that something that we need to engage somebody that has more technology expertise? It depends, right? That's really the answer is it depends. And how do we do that and still keep the same concepts, the same principles in check? I mean, if you're a bank, you know that the regulators haven't come out and explicitly formally put any guidance other than you hear them suggests that the model risk principles are definitely in play. And that's what they're going to, that's what their message is that they're leading with. But that does not undermine any of these other frameworks that are valid, right? They are valid. And we're all learning. And that's the key point is that we're all learning, we're all adapting, we're all kind of finding out what works and what doesn't. And sometimes it's based on our skill set and what kind
Yes.
of application we have. So you have to kind of right size it for you that way. But they are definitely a starting point. I would highly emphasize being familiar with them, using those general applications, and then just tweak it based on how you're organized, where your talent lies, where your capabilities lie.
Bringing folks to the table from more corners sounds imperative from your perspective. So, talk to me a little bit about data governance, IT governance, risk, coming to the table with the strategists and the innovation folks and transformation folks
I
for
would
the.
say that the partnership is the key here. I know that as operational risk, technically IT governance is a first line, so I'm oversight of that, if that makes sense. We roll into the same committees. That in my world, data governance is under IT governance or associated with it. So while separate, it still works. I have the privacy component that we bring in. Definitely the information security or cyber security is a key player as well, and really just going back to who we have one central owner, if you will, of AI, but you have all these people that are coming together to make a combined effort. So whether we're merging policies, creating policies, setting boundaries, deciding what questions we're going to ask in third party onboarding, identifying an inventory, where are we going to keep the inventory for AI capabilities, all of that is happening right now. And all of that can only be successful with the most communication and the most cooperation and being willing to bend. And sometimes, saying, no, I know this is right. I know you don't quite understand where I'm coming from, but I'm going to try to say it a different way. And then, or maybe I'll get my friend to say it instead of me. They might say it better. Whatever the case may be, is just to keep the communication, keep the message going. And, sometimes it takes twice before somebody gets it, and sometimes it takes 10 times. But I would say consistency, be consistent in your approach, be consistent in your message, and it'll get received. Um, it just may take some time.
It may take some time. Good listening skills and other skills in general. We know that the models will evolve radically as
Yes.
they get implemented into standard regulated sectors like finance. What kind of talent are you looking for in folks that you're hiring, let's say, or in house that can help consolidate this process and secure its path towards maturity?
I think what we're trying to figure out right now is that a lot, we want to have people that support whatever technology that we implement. We don't have to program it, we don't have to own it, but we do have to maintain it. And we want that skill set right now. In the future, you need to decide what your future plans are. If you want some development capability, maybe it's 10%, maybe it's, 30, 70%. Whatever that is, you have to have that in-house talent. What kind of talent? Like what kind of technology? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to be more cutting edge or not? And that's really where you have to kind of go back to your strategy and figure out what you want from that perspective. From the governance side, it's generally understanding governance and processes and understanding the rules, theories, if you will, on how to apply some of these things, and really getting those people that are willing to not be rigid, be creative in what you come up with. Find it's all very process based, but maybe find a unique way to process or a unique way to apply to meet the end goal of what you're doing. So definitely someone with an open mind, patience, and willingness to keep learning, right? Because everything is evolving. So definitely keeping that educational component and then that communication component, sharing it with everyone as you go too.
Excellent. Excellent. Angela, we're so grateful to you always for having you at the podcast. Folks, if you are still listening, then make sure you check out the blog that is associated with this podcast. And we're just going to be saying that this is part one of more related to the topic. So we welcome you back. Angela Jenkins, again, Senior Vice President of the American National Bank of Texas, wearing many hats: operational risk management, TPRM, privacy, records management, etc., etc. You are a gem, so thank you for being with us. And I'm Paola Saibene, the host of Governed by Design at Resultant, practice lead of data governance. Thank you, Angela, for your time.